Meeting, we'll connect the two of you so we get details. This is going to result in another account, and with your help and advice on what you need. I'm not sure what the timing is. There is kind of a bias from at the national level of the census, where they're not too interested in counting everybody. So we're trying to push back. This is the first specific example I've heard of something like this. So let's see if we can weigh in and change their minds. And if there's criteria that you need, we can assert that and say no, this needs to be addressed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Very well, James.
They didn't shake it up very well, did they? Hi, I'm Janelle Bennett, if you don't know me. I've been a foster parent in Magnet County for many years. And my question to you is your involvement. I tried to do a little more research before I came, a little more involvement about the foster care system, about DHS, about the programs, and our concerns, many, many concerns. And some more than the concern is some going about how we can go about some of these laws being changed so that it helps the foster parent a little bit more and gives the foster parents a little more rights.
So the foster care system is a state system. And there's a couple things I've raised recently with the governor's team, because since it's a more governor's thing than the U.S. Senate, lost their basically staff member who recruited foster parents, which meant kids from the community were leaving the community for foster care. And then there's a recent issue I just learned about where foster children are being sent out of state, which I had not heard about before. And I want to get to the bottom of what's going on with that. But it's a state program, so I weigh in and channel responses and concerns back to the state policy makers on it.
Well, that's my hope, is that you'll have a chance to weigh in and realize the need, the great need for foster parents, but the way the foster parents are, being, the laws and so forth that are not being taken care of, so it's just not mixing, the two aren't mixing, and those are our future, these are the children.
Yeah.
So anything you can put in and weigh in.
It takes a special heart to be a foster parent. My parents were foster parents before my sister and I were born, and they had the two little children, their brother and sister, for about a year, and then the family, the birth family was ready to take them back, and it just ripped their hearts out. And they're like, we can't do it. And then shortly after that, my sister was born. So. But it's so important for kids to have the stability and the love that they may have often not had in a fractured beginning. So yay to our foster parents for staying on. And if there's more specifics that you'd like me to channel back, 05 and 007 and 029. Thank you, Agent 007.
Well, my question is, how are we going to eliminate the turn towards authoritarianism and totalitarianism that is taking place within this country, and not only this country, but within the world? But if we're a beacon for the rest of the world, we need to start with us and then go elsewhere. How do we get rid of this? Other than, I guess, getting rid of Citizens United would help, but I mean, it just seems like there is a huge change in the whole ethos of our system in the United States.
So I think it is a real concern, and money is the Citizens United money. It really became a big factor in national campaigns in 2014, I was running for office in 2014, and there was outside Citizens United funding of like $5 million of attack ads. And I must say it should make everyone think about whether to run for public office, because the attack ads are not nice. I'll put it that way. So there's a bill called For the People Act that establishes nationally a requirement for independent commissions for establishing congressional districts so that gerrymandering is brought under control. It proceeds to restore the Voting Rights Act that was gutted by the Supreme Court in the Shelby County case. And then you can't block the dark money, but you can shine a light on it so it's no longer dark. At least we see the sources of it and how it's traveling, which may help us build an understanding that will discourage that flow of money. Anonymous money is so tempting to use by very powerful groups in an unaccountable and mean-spirited way. And it's really, what do they spend it for? They spend it to get more laws to help the powerful. And I'll tell you what I'm really very concerned about is if you look around the republics of the world and you track their wealth inequality, when the wealth inequality gets to a certain point, it's very hard to turn it back because that wealth can be deployed in ownership of media, in lobbying efforts, in the elections, in messaging campaigns, in ways that tend to secure their power even despite our voting system. And so I think it's very important we pass this For the People Act to take on those corrupting influences. The other piece, when we talk about authoritarianism, the other piece that's been on a lot of people's minds, the checks and balances of the Constitution. And we've had a very controversial period that we've gone through with the impeachment in the House and the trial in the Senate. And being in the Senate, I was very concerned that it's the first time the Senate did not conduct what we would call, what we think of as Americans as a trial, where you have access to documents and witnesses. The Senate took a vote, and it's like the jurors deciding how to run the trial, and they decided to run the trial by not having documents and witnesses. First time in U.S. history. I would have liked to have seen the leadership of the Senate stand up and say, despite our partisan differences, we have a responsibility under the Constitution. That means a full and fair trial. We will seek the truth, and then we will decide and make the judgment on whether it merits expulsion from office or doesn't. But we will get the truth. And that is our responsibility. That's what I would like to have heard. We didn't hear that, and we didn't do that, and I think it's another damage of an important check and balance. And it isn't just that trial. It is also the oversight of congressional committees when they are requesting documents or witnesses from the administration. They're often simply told no, and that's a big change because the Constitution envisions Congress having a check on the executive, and that means you have to be able to find out what they're doing. And if you can't get documents and witnesses, you can't exercise that check. So that is something we've got to find a solution. The strategy of the executive is to say, well, take us to court, but going to court is a 2-year process at best. That's not, you can't exercise congressional oversight when getting a document takes you 2 years. So we've got, I don't know the answer, but we've got to figure it out. But one thing I have proposed is I'm proposing a rule change for the Senate, and the rule change says that in any future impeachment trial, we will have subpoena power to be able to get witnesses and documents relevant to the case as determined relevancy by the presiding judge. So that you have a nonpartisan factor saying, yes, this is relevant and this should be acquired. So hopefully, I'd like to see that adopted in a bipartisan way. Okay.
Senator Davis, I just want to say thank you for co-sponsoring with Senator Wyden the S-2828 out here community empowerment for the Milwaukee Act.
You're welcome. And have folks heard about this act? Senator Wyden really gets the credit for having led the negotiations on this and brought together very disparate interests who kind of started out here and they found a place to come together. It takes 1 million acres plus, and it's currently, I think it's called Wilderness Watch, not Wilderness Watch, but Wilderness Study Area, and it returns it to non-wilderness study. Then takes some other acreage, about 1 million acres, and makes it actual wilderness. It protects in that wilderness structure a lot of the existing functions on the land, and concerned about fire and so forth. And I think probably both sides would say it's not the bill they would have written, but they found a common place that seems to be productive. But I'll just, have folks heard of this, about this? How many folks like the idea of this bill and taking that step on Milwaukee? A few, okay. How many folks have heard about the details and are really opposed to it? Okay, well, that's helpful feedback. Thank you. Were you involved in helping the negotiation? Yes. Well done. Well done. And 029? Okay.
My name's Tom Hillpondo. I'm new to the area. We moved here about 2 years ago. I wanted to know, I read an article today that was really kind of disturbing, and it happens in every state. Portland, everything's over on that side. Even in Idaho, everything's the great state of Ada. I was reading where there's counties that are looking to form to go over Idaho. This is Oregon. We're all Oregon. How do we stop that? How do we become bipartisan? Get away from this partisan, so we stick together and we become one. As a veteran, I look across the street and I see people that are arguing over politics. And it's like, why? You know, I go over to Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and do that, come back, and nothing changes. Why has it got to be us against them? And what are we doing to change this?
And Tom, you were saying you served in Desert Storm,
Yes,
didn't you? And thank you. Maybe we could have all of them stand up, so we can appreciate your... One of the first things I did when I was elected to the Senate was go visit our troops in Iraq and in Afghanistan. We had a lot of Oregon National Guard deployed, and they shared a lot of their insights and thoughts. One of the really big concerns initially was a lot of vehicles that didn't have proper armor, and these explosive devices were going off under the convoys, and just one of many challenges. This us versus them is reinforced by social media. It's a pretty new force in America. We're not sure how to handle it. It's reinforced by the difference in the cable TV. I was flipping back and forth between the different cable channels, trying to get a sense of that. And so I had this one incident that captures it for me. And let's see, it was a conversation about the importance of looking into the Russian involvement in the election, the 2016 election. And one channel was saying, elections are the foundation of our democracy. We've got to understand what the Russians did so that we can stop them from doing it again. The other channel had a subtitle, and it said, coup against the president. A coup against the president. And these people jumped the fence at the White House. That wouldn't happen in America. So I turned up the volume, and it said this investigation into the Russians is really an effort to undo the legitimacy of the 2016, and it's a coup against the president. So it's like the same issue was being presented in dramatically different ways. And this is a real challenge for America. I encourage people to, listen to multiple different sources of news to try to sort it out. My wife, Mary, comes from Minneapolis, and she has a group of high school friends she was visiting. And when I called her, she said, they have some questions for you. So it came like this mini town hall with my wife's high school friends. And they were talking about several issues, and I said, well, this is the way I view it. And one of the women on the phone said, but here's the problem, is that I hear this story over here and this story over there, and how can I figure out what the real truth is? And I think that's a problem that haunts us in America. How do you figure out what the real story is when there's dramatically different stories? And all I can say is read and watch multiple sources and good luck. It's really hard. It's really hard, but it deepens the divisions. It is a strategy that the Russians are particularly guilty of taking the divisions in America. They plant false stories, they accentuate real stories to try to divide Americans. And I think about the Pledge of Allegiance that we had at the very start, one nation under God, indivisible. Well, are we indivisible? Because we're being divided in a lot of ways right now, and we have to resist that. We have to fight against that. And I feel like one of the things we can do is if any group is attacked in our community, we need to stand with that group and say, we're all Americans here together, and we're going to work together to make this nation a more successful, more prosperous, more beautiful place, as a way of resisting the cultivation of division. Another factor, I'll just say, is to hold town halls. I go to every county every year. A lot of people in a lot of counties will tell me they dramatically disagree with positions I've taken, and I'm trying to listen and understand and think about the challenges in different parts of the state and how I and my team can be helpful. But most of America, they don't hold town halls like this anymore because of the divisions you're talking about, and because people have lost the ability to discuss things with a bit of graciousness. And I just find, I think we've established an Oregon way. Senator Wyden helped start this of every county every year. And I think we've gotten a tradition of being better at listening to each other than most other states because we're doing it. But I'd like to see a requirement that everyone elected to Congress has to hold at least a dozen town halls a year. And I think that would help a little bit. What do you think? A dozen town halls a year minimum?